Welcome to today's library lesson, Copyright and You. What is copyright? Copyright is the rights authors and creators have regarding their works. This includes anyone who creates something which is protected under copyright law. Copyright is automatic, once it is fixed in any tangible medium of expression. This means that once you write a paper, take a photograph, perform a play you wrote, or paint a picture, to name a few, you own the rights to that work. Copyright is applicable to a variety of works, including literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works, such as poetry, novels, music, songs, computer software, and architecture. What copyright does not protect are names, slogans, titles, short phrases, facts, ideas, processes, or methods. All of these images are examples of creations that are subject to copyright, but these are just a few. There are many more. What are your rights as a creator? You have the exclusive right to reproduce your work, prepare derivative work. This means that other works based off your original work are yours and yours alone. You have the right to distribute your work, which means to sell or make your work available to others, to display your work publicly, to perform your work publicly, and to record your work digitally. Now, one question you might have is, how can you use works created by others if they are protected under copyright? We will discuss 3 ways. First, you can find works through Creative Commons. Creative Commons are an organization which provides copyright licenses that allow for free distribution of copyrighted work. These licenses provide varying degrees of freedom of use, from attribution only to attribution, non-commercial, and non-derivative use. Creators may choose to license their work through Creative Commons, which gives them more choice about the way they share their work. So you can find works through Creative Commons that will allow you to use the work in any way that you choose, provided possibly that you say where you got the work and who the author was, and provide a link. Another way that you can use works are if they are in the public domain. Some creations are part of the public domain, and these are free to use material that is not protected under copyright law. You may use anything in the public domain without restriction or permission. So, why are these things there? One reason that things are part of the public domain is because of their age. Anything published before January 1st, 1924 is automatically part of the public domain and free for you to use. Next, the copyright could be expired. Any works published before 1964 are part of the public domain if their copyright was not renewed. You should always check with the Copyright Office to make sure that the work you want to use is indeed part of public domain. And finally, sometimes the author gives their work to the public, and these are called dedicated works. Again, this is a rare occurrence, but sometimes an author will choose not to protect their work and dedicate it to the public. Check with the copyright owner, which is not always the author, to verify if a work is dedicated to the public domain. Another way that you can use copyrighted material is under something called fair use. Now, in some cases, you don't have to get permission from the creator to use their copyrighted work. Fair use applies in cases such as criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research. And there are 4 factors that you need to consider if you are deciding if the purpose of your use of a copyrighted work is fair. So factor number 1, purpose and character. This is the why and how of how you are using the work. If you are using the work for an educational purpose, you are protected. Or if you change or transform the work into something very different, you are protected. 2, nature of the work. Of what type is the original work? If the original work is a work of fiction, you are less likely to be covered under fair use. Works of nonfiction, or those based on facts, lend themselves more to fair use. So you should always ask yourself, is this a work of fiction or is it based on facts? 3, effect on the potential market. How does your use affect the creator's ability to make money or sell their work? Your use of copyrighted material cannot get in the way of a creator earning money from their work. And number 4, amount or sustainability. How much of the work do you use? If you're using a small portion of the work and your use does not include the heart of the work, you are protected. It is very important to remember with fair use that it can be tricky. You don't have to have all of the factors to be using a work fairly, but the more you have, the better. The fewer you have, the less likely you are to be protected under fair use. So, what can you use? The following cheat sheet will help you when and how you are deciding to use a copyrighted work, especially in school. So you can see that if you decide to use a poem, it is fair use to incorporate it into multimedia projects as long as you are attributing the work to the author. You cannot be making copies of the work with the intent to avoid the purchase of the work. And the same applies for most of the other types of works. If you are using an artwork or graphic in a multimedia presentation, then you have to use 5 images or fewer of an artist or photographer in one program or printing, and not more than 10 or 15% of the images from a published collective work. You still must attribute the work to the author. Alteration of the images is okay as long as it is for a temporary purpose. Video is very popular to use in multimedia presentations. You can use video clips, but they must be only 10% of the video or 3 minutes, whichever is less. And again, you have to remember you can't use the heart of the work. You still must attribute the work to the author. And the copy must be a legitimate copy, one that you have purchased or own, not a bootleg or rented copy. Music, again, is popular to use in multimedia presentations. You can use it, but it can only be 10% of a musical composition, and the author must be attributed as well. So getting permission. If you need to use a copyrighted work and the work is not available through open license, it's not available through the public domain, or it is not covered by a fair use exemption, then you need to follow these 3 steps. Step number 1. Identify the owner. Who owns the copyright and how can you get in touch with them to find out about licensing their work? Step 2. Request permission. Ask to use the work from the copyright owner. Tell the owner what you plan to do with their work. Step number 3, negotiate terms of use. Talk with the owner about how they will allow you to use the work and how long. You may have to pay a fee for use. Finally, it is important to note that plagiarism and copyright infringement are not the same thing. So what are the differences? Plagiarism is using someone else's words or ideas as your own. It's not illegal, but it's also not ethical. You could face consequences ranging from a failing grade to expulsion from school. Copyright infringement is when a copyrighted work is used, reproduced, distributed, or altered without the owner's permission. Copyright infringement is against the law, and consequences range from a fine to jail time. These are the resources that have been used for this presentation. We have a copyright guide for students, copyright.gov, Creative Commons, and photos and graphics from various sources. Creative Commons, the Library of Congress, Copyright Guide for Students. The image is from Creative Commons, as well as the graphic that was used. Thank you for your attention, and hopefully now you have a better understanding of copyright rules and will be very deliberate when using someone else's work or in creating your own. If you have any further questions, make sure to ask your librarian. Thank you.